At this point, when we have about an 11.7-inch figure, are they an action figure anymore? Or can we just go back to calling them dolls? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, like, action figure was a term that just was invented. So there's a fun fact for you today. This is Super Adaptoid from Marvel Legends. I found him at Ollie's. Let's get him out of the box. It looks like he comes with Captain America's shield, Thor's hammer. He's all green. What else is in the box? I don't know. Let's find out together. Here we go. This is very much Barbie size. So even though he is an action figure, you know, it does scale well with Barbies. When it comes to Marvel Legends and they do these larger figures, what I've noticed is that the detail just comes screaming out of them. Everything that gets lost when you shrink it down to that 1/12 size. Well, I mean, this is still 1/12, it's just a larger figure. But when you shrink it down to, well, let's see, right here. When you shrink it down to this size, some of that detail gets lost. But when you have a much larger version, well, you can just see the details come to life. They pop out. But what do you get in the box? You get Super Adaptoid. You get this green giant Captain America shield with some rubber or very soft plastic loops for the hand, which I'm not quite sure how that's going to work with our triangle gloves. We'll have green Mjolnir. This is a very large hammer, and it only fits in his right hand because the left hand is a closed punching fist. Which brings us to the first thing. These three things in the box are all you get. Now, thinking about it, that's pretty impressive. This is like twice the size of a normal figure, and the fact that it even comes with accessories I think is pretty cool. But just so that we're on the same playing field, I got this guy for 20 bucks, which I don't think is a bad deal for such a large figure. However, I would have loved to have seen a matching set of hands. So an extra punching fist and then also an extra holding fist, like a C-grip hand. This one isn't even trigger finger. I don't even think you could find a large enough blaster for it. Maybe some of the Transformers, but you know, ultimately, just two C-grip hands, two punching fists would have been a great inclusion for this. Because, yeah, I mean, like, this is just a large figure, and to have it be a little more versatile would have been incredible. But let's take a look at Super Adaptoid here. So first, the head. He looks back really far. This is a great feature here. So what about the side to side? The side to side isn't so great, but the down looks great. So this is a wonderful thing for a larger figure. So somebody who's going to be looking down at our figures more often than not, having that articulation that hinges up and down is going to be critical. So the other thing is we have our shoulders. Let's see if we can't do a T-pose. We are T-posing. Look at that. I wouldn't say it's a true T-pose. Maybe I can get a little more. No, I cannot get a little more out of that side. But it's a solid T-pose. He has double jointed elbows, which, okay, that is getting kind of in the way of his own bicep. I think that's part of the problem, unless I'm able to hinge this part first. No, that's strange. There is not that much of a cut right here on the actual bicep. So what we're getting is what looks to be a double joint, but a very limited double joint. It seems like more should have been cut out of there, but for whatever reason, it just didn't get it. All right, what about the torso? He can look a little bit left and right. Up and down is going to be from the ab crunch, that kind of cut out here. And then we are going to be looking at the thigh swivel, swiveling around. Oh, he has a boot swivel. Oh, he also does have a glove swivel too, just in case you're wondering. And double jointed knees, which have a really nice click to them and a lot better movement. Super Adaptoid so far, faults and all, is essentially just a double-sized Marvel Legends figure, which is good because this is a double-sized Marvel Legends figure. All right, time to accessorize. Here we go. He does hold Mjolnir, or this green version of Mjolnir, very well. It sits very securely. The strap on the bottom is like molded plastic. It's not very flexible. But when it comes to this, I'm really curious how this is going to work because he doesn't have an open C hand to, like a C grip hand, to hold on to the grip part. And then also we're contending with some other stuff here. So what is going to happen with our Captain America shield? This is not looking good for our figure. It gets stuck. It gets stuck right here. Maybe there's a way to get around it, but I'm honestly not quite sure. It stays okay. And if we can pose it in a way, right? Okay. So yeah, here we go. We can pose it in a way that it looks like he's holding onto it, but it's almost like a little optical illusion. And part of that reason is because the fin on the glove is catching on the brace or the strap for the shield. The peg on the back, but there is not a corresponding peg out his actual back. So we can't really attach this to our figure, and I'm wondering if we even take out this, can we get this gripped into his C-grip hand? I don't think so. I think we're gonna run into the exact same problem. Yeah, we still run into the same problem. It's close, but that is unfortunate because that really limits the use of the shield. And Super Adaptoid being an amalgamation of all of the Avengers, not being able to use one of the most iconic Avengers weapons is really unfortunate. A detail I like around the belt is that at different points there are these little bumps. And these bumps catch on the belt so that the belt situates itself around the waist a lot better. I do talk a lot about G.I. Joe Classified, so what I notice on those sometimes is that the belts will kind of raise up, and it does look kind of awkward on the figures sometimes, but this seems like a good system where it just kind of clamps, like it just pushes it out a little bit so it stays relatively secure unless you're doing a lot of crazy posing. And throughout the posing, the joints don't feel too bad. Like there's nothing too loose, there's nothing too sticky, and I get a good sense of what Super Adaptoid is all about. So let me take him over to the bench some and try him out some more, and I'll give you some of my final thoughts. All right, here we go. Super Adaptoid. What do I like about this figure? One, the scale. I love how this scales with other figures. You can have him in poses opposing other figures, and even, again, let me just grab this guy again. You can just see, like, okay, here we go. It is so much bigger, and it is cool to display them with other figures that are normal size. You get the sense of scale that Super Adaptoid is going for. I also like the head movement because we have a figure who is a quasi-giant. Having him be able to look down upon the foes that he's going to face is a really great feature. One thing I would have changed, though, is I might have redone the gloves because it's interfering with how we use the Captain America shield. This wasn't built for the tolerances that these fins have to contend with. And it limits the use, it limits the posability of this, and I haven't quite found a way to have it stick all that well on our figure. But when it comes to the hammer, I think this is a great inclusion. Absolutely great. I wouldn't change a thing about it. I love how well it sticks in the hand, and even though that it does take like a little bit of like hooking in to get it holding on securely, once it's there, you can use the wrist hinges and you get some really great poses with very minimal effort. Now, a lot of that is helped by the large scale of the figure because we get just a bigger sense of what all of these poses look like. You can do very little, and that telegraphs into a much larger proportion. Not scale, the scale is the same, it's just bigger proportions. One thing I absolutely don't like is the lack of additional fist sculpts. We should have had a matching set for either, or. I would have been content with just the C-grip hands. However, knowing that he has this large fist just like ready to punch things, that is a good look too, so I wish there was just a matching set. I don't know how you would have done that because I'm guessing they were at the very limit in terms of what they could pack into this box because it was already such a larger figure. The green color I can see being very polarizing. Now, this being Super Adaptoid, I'm totally fine with it being mostly green. In fact, it all makes sense, but we also kind of have some elements of MCU in here. So this feels like it could have been maybe pushed just a little further, incorporating maybe some darker blacks, some charcoal grays, something like that. Similar to what we see with the belt buckle or even the handle of Mjolnir. I think that would have been like an interesting change to the design. But again, I think we're contending with, they already put so much into this figure, just in terms of plastic, that additional paint or additional parts that would have just increased the cost. And Adaptoid, you know, I don't know. I don't know if this is like a super popular figure. I kind of like him a lot, but in terms of overall Marvel popularity, not sure. There is a slight imperfection. I just noticed this on the gauntlet. Right up there, I don't know if you can see that, there's just like some weird, like the paint rubbed off, but I think it's just a green piece. So something got nicked in the manufacturing process because this was in its tissue bag. There was nothing that it was rubbing against. I'm not quite sure where that came from. And I don't see that on any other part. So when this got made, there must have been something going on at the factory that gave it a little scuff mark, which is unfortunate. Again, I'm glad that we're done with the windowless boxes. This would have been like a really cool figure to see in a windowed box because, well, I guess it kind of would have looked like a Barbie at that point. Oh, speaking of which, let me go grab one. All right, yep, exact same scale. But the benefit here is that Super Adaptoid is going to have a lot more articulation than a Barbie doll, but looking at that coat, maybe no, we can't. The fins, remember, we can't even get the shield on. We can't even put a cool suit coat on him because he's got these fins. What a bummer. Well, anyway, I think the $20 that I paid for this character was fair. I think probably a little more than fair. I would have ended up probably paying a little more for this had the deal not been as good at Ollie's. I really like what they did with this figure. I like the larger scale. I like the additional details. I even like the homage to some of the original or early versions of Super Adaptoid that make it look just very classic. So some touches of MCU to make it a little more modern. If you like this discussion on Super Adaptoid, I talk a lot about action figures, pop culture collectibles, also blasters, anything action related. You can stay tuned here at the Ri-Fi channel. And if you hit subscribe, you can stay along for the ride and get all future videos. How cool is that? But for now, that's all I know about Super Adaptoid from Marvel Legends. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.